You're watching Cannabis Planet. We bring you news and information, collective profiles, growing tips with Ed Rosenthal, cannabis cooking, entertainment, and more. Cannabis Planet, a gift from the galaxy.
I am Bruce Merkin, and I'm Director of Communications for the Marijuana Policy Project. MPP is the largest marijuana policy reform organization in the U.S. We've got about 29,000 members all over the country. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we lobby on the state and federal level to bring about marijuana policies that make some sense, with MPP closing in on 8 years now since the end of 2001. It's grown tremendously, and I think it's grown in public acceptance and in being taken seriously by the mass media. Back a few months after I started, the first time I ever called CNN to try to pitch a story, they literally laughed out loud at me. I said, "Hi, I'm Bruce Merkin with the Marijuana Policy Project," and the woman burst out laughing. Put the phone down while she composed herself, came back and said, "Okay, Mr. Marijuana, what can I do for you?" Now they're calling us. The LA Times this morning quoted the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Steve Cooley, as saying that all of the medical marijuana dispensaries in the county are illegal and that they all should be shut down, and basically indicating that he might start trying to do that. It's a really dubious interpretation of state law. And yes, there are some gray areas the way the law is written, so there's a little room for interpretation, but I think clearly he's out on a limb legally, and from a policy standpoint, it just makes no sense at all. I mean, do we really think that it's better to send patients to drug dealers on the streets rather than going to openly operating businesses to get their medicine? And if there are problems, and I'll grant that maybe there are in some places, you can solve that through rational, common sense regulations. I mean, I'm here in San Francisco, where we've had a medical marijuana dispensary regulation ordinance in place for about 3 years now. And it's working so well that the most conservative columnist in the San Francisco Chronicle, C.W. Navius, wrote a column a year ago saying, "Hey, this isn't a controversy anymore. Everything is humming along just fine." Well, they could do that in LA too. All it takes is the political will to do it right. The State Attorney General, Jerry Brown, put out a set of guidelines a year ago last August, which laid out some parameters under which dispensaries could operate, basically saying that they should operate as collectives or cooperatives, be nonprofit, but he did say that storefront sales can be all right. The district attorney, Cooley, in LA, seems to have taken a much more draconian view for no particular reason that I really understand. In Los Angeles, you've had a particularly sort of complicated situation because the city decided that they were proliferating too fast, they needed to pass some rules and get a handle on the situation, so let's have a moratorium, which they then didn't really enforce, so they've had kind of a messy situation. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having rules, but there's got to be an orderly process that's fair to everybody involved. It's fair to the operators, it's fair to the patients. On every possible count, LA has managed to just mess up the whole process and do it the most mangled way possible. There's two fronts on this, if you will. One is legal and one is political. The legal front, to some degree, is going to depend on what the DA does, who he tries to prosecute, and what grounds he uses to try and prosecute them. And presumably everybody will get their lawyers together and fight that. But this is also a political issue. The district attorney is an elected official. And it's not unusual for LA County DAs to try and seek higher office, too. So there is room for some political pressure from the citizens on the district attorney, on the county board of supervisors, on the city council to say, we want to have dispensaries, we want to have them appropriately regulated, to have a set of rules of the road, but let's not deprive patients of access to their medicine who need it. Let's have a sensible set of rules. It's my choice whether I choose to unwind at the end of the day with a glass of wine or a glass of scotch or a little marijuana, which is probably the safer of the three substances. So why should anybody have to risk arrest for making that choice? Joe Citizen needs to get involved, needs to speak out, needs to speak up, needs to contact your elected officials, write letters to your local newspaper, and if you're able to, if you are a marijuana user, come out of the closet. Gay and lesbian folks didn't really start to get their rights until they started to come out of the closet. And I'm old enough to remember when that was a very scary thing for people to do. You know, when there was no Ellen DeGeneres, et cetera, et cetera. And once people see that, oh, we're talking about our neighbors, our friends, that puts the issue in a very different light for them. The fact is that we know that over 100 million Americans have used marijuana. That's not just a few freaks. It is your doctor, lawyer, your barber, your plumber, your next door neighbor, etc. But because it's illegal and people are sort of in the closet, people don't realize that. Not only am I college educated, you know, I'm thinking back to my classmates, folks that I know who smoked marijuana in college. One of them is a successful neurosurgeon in the San Fernando Valley. Another is a Tony Award-winning Broadway director. Another is a successful novelist. You know, if the claim is smoking marijuana will ruin your life, it sure hasn't been that way in my social circles.
Hi, I'm Bill Panzer, and you're watching Cannabis Planet.
If you've been arrested for any alleged criminal conduct, it is important that you contact an experienced criminal defense attorney immediately. An experienced criminal defense attorney will guide you through the process from the beginning stages of bail all the way through the disposition. Contact our office today for a free consultation.
I certainly did not see myself as someone who would use marijuana as medicine, but then I tried it and realized that marijuana works.
Medicam, a prescription for change. Located right off Catella Avenue, GGOC provides compassionate care and compassionate pricing. GGOC.
Hi, I'm Mike, your resident chef here at Cannabis Planet, and today we're making canna butter. Canna butter is a way to extract the THC from your cannabis flowers and leaves. This process is very simple, and this is my recipe. I'm using 1 ounce of good quality trim. I don't like to use whole buds for this because nowadays the growers are very good and the medicine is very strong. I also use 1 pound of unsalted butter, European if you can, because it has a higher fat content. Also, about a 1/4 cup of water. We're going to be steeping this recipe all night, so you don't want it to boil over, and you don't want the butter fat to ignite. Also, you're going to need a few hardware items for this. You're going to need a good fine mesh strainer and some cheesecloth and something that can hold your butter to help it cool fast. It needs a wide area that way it can cool quicker. To start, you're going to need to melt your butter and the water together. And I have some going already over here, so let's look at it. At this stage, when the butter is fully melted, you really got to watch your heat, as it can boil over and start a fire. We really don't want that. Remember, I'm using 1 ounce of good quality shake for this recipe. My favorite part. Now, you fully incorporate the cannabis. Make sure you set the stove to low as it can go. Put the lid nice and tight, and then now we're going to steep it for a full 24 hours. Make sure you have the handle in for safety reasons, and preferably I like to put it on the back of the stove just so it's away from everybody. This one has already steeped for full 24 hours, and now it's time to strain it. Remember, I use a fine mesh strainer and some cheesecloth and a wide stock pot so that way the butter can cool quickly. I'm going to place it in the sink in case I have any mishaps and I don't want to spill the can of butter all over the counters or make a huge mess. Remember to hold your cheesecloth in place as we're going to wrap the cannabis and squeeze all that beautiful butter out of it. Smells really good. Now, remember to hold your cheesecloth and pour it in. Be careful. As you can see, it comes out cleanly. It passes through. You catch all the plant matter. This is the hardest part. So now, I have the cannabis nice and wrapped up in this cheesecloth. I'm gonna twist it. Slowly. Remember, you don't want to force the cannabis out. We're just trying to squeeze the butter out. Look. If you can use gloves for this. But really, I like to get into my cannabis. Now, depending on how much you want to sit here and twist and get as much as you want out, it's up to you. But I think we're good there. Remember, when you discard this, this is still cannabis. So you need to make sure it's wrapped up in a nice trash container. You don't want just some kids to be able to find this. This is a medicine, remember. Everything I'm showing you still is a medicine. As you can see the extraction's already happened. There's a light green color from the chlorophyll from the cannabis. Now, all we have to do is cool this down. And remember, the way we cooked this, we made a clarified butter out of this. So the water and the butter are going to separate. I'm going to show you. I have some finished ones in here. Let's cool this one down. Once it's cooled, I portion it in these 4-ounce containers. Remember, we used 1 ounce of good quality trim. I didn't want to use whole bud for this because it would be too strong. I just wanted a day-to-day butter. I used 1 pound of good quality butter, unsalted, preferably with a high fat content, and just a 1/4 cup of water so we didn't burn the butter. We used the fine mesh strainer. We also used some cheesecloth to make sure we took all the plant matter out of it. And now in this form, the can of butter can be used for all your edible needs. Spaghetti sauces, your normal brownies, any kind of edibles. You'll be even spread on your toast in the morning. So I'm Mike, your resident chef here at Cannabis Planet. I'll see you next week.
I'm Rick Steves, author of Europe Through the Back Door and host of Rick Steves Europe, and you're watching Cannabis Planet.
Hi, my name is Bo. I'm 79 years old, father of 4 sons, and grandfather and great-grandfather to 27 others. I'm a musician, a former United States Marine veteran, and last year I had an operation leaving me with a hernia that left a great discomfort. My grandson said, "Grandpa, why don't you apply for medical marijuana to help ease the pain?" Well, I never thought that I would, but guess what? I did, and it works for me. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Medican, a prescription for change.
The Know Your Rights Expo is headed our way. Orange County's first medical and legal marijuana expo. Saturday, August 28th at 800 West Catella Avenue in Anaheim. Hundreds of booths and a separate stage with speakers, presented by Orange County Normal and the law firm of Glue and Kim. Don't miss it, Orange County. For more information, go to knowyourrightsexpo.com. That's knowyourrightsexpo.com.
Advanced Nutrients has the products you need for healthy gardens, bigger buds, and greater yield. Scorpion juice, iguana juice, Syncyzyme, organic bee, colossal bud blast, and big bud. AdvancedNutrients.com.
On August 12th, I woke up pretty early with back pain and got up and made myself some toast with medicated honey. I heard a noise and I looked out the window and one of our house guests was leaving the yard and I noticed a man. So I turned around to go back inside the house and he had heard me or seen me and told me to come back down. He said he was the police and I said, what police? And he said LAPD Narcotics Division. And so I came down and they were waiting for backup. They weren't ready to raid our home. Once backup got there, it was LAPD, LA County Sheriff, and one DEA agent. The sheriff's deputies were outside the house with shotguns. I got patted down by a female officer. She asked me if I lived there, and I told her I'm not answering any questions without a lawyer. And I repeatedly said this throughout the 4 hours that we were detained as they searched and destroyed our garden and our home. At any given time, there were anywhere from 2 to over half a dozen officers standing around, not doing a whole lot, chit-chatting, talking about the overtime that they're gonna get. My roommate got arrested. They did not read his rights to him in front of me. They did not explain to him why he was being arrested in front of me. He hasn't been charged to this date. He has not been charged with anything. 3 other locations were simultaneously raided. 2 medical cannabis dispensing collectives and 1 storage unit. There were at least 7 agencies involved. My first thought is, how do I get my personal medicine back? Since I was well within California law, that I had far less than what was allotted to me. There were, I think, about 3 or 4, maybe 5 officers standing around in our front yard, and one of them had felt the ground give below him, under his foot, and he asked what was down there. And the other guy came back with shovels, and they were digging up the front yard, making a huge mess, and ultimately what they found was a septic tank. I've been waiting a month and a half to figure out what's going to happen with my complaint and how I can get my medicine back. On September 22nd, a lot of concerned citizens, medical cannabis activists, providers met together for the Planning and Land Use Management Committee meeting. Speaking of the plum for short, I think we have some footage of it. Let's go ahead and take a look at it and see what happened.
Many gathered at City Hall today.
Well, the Planning and Land Use meeting is generally to set rules and regulations on planning and land use issues. Patients, caregivers, people who are growers, and owners all have to register with the police and register where it's being grown. Actually, the owners have to be fingerprinted. Charged with intent to distribute, and their bail was at $50,000. 3 people, okay? As you see the back, no charges filed, Los Angeles Superior Court, Division 30, A49 PC reject. That means that the DA couldn't even find the authority to even charge them with a crime because no crime was committed because we are elected patients. That's why we live in the state of California. We're allowed to do what we're doing. This is proof that the police made a mistake that day, and this also proof that's going to be used in a jury trial for monetary damage and declaratory relief against the state of California and the city of Los Angeles.
One of the questions or topics that was brought up today was the purity or potency of the medicine, and how is that regulated, and is there pesticides in our medicine at the collectives?
With a restaurant in LA County, there's ratings from A to closing. Is there any purity system when it comes to any of the products you are purchasing?
I guarantee that there is no amount of marijuana that can be purchased in a dispensary in Southern California that would be sufficient enough to get an accurate pesticide out.
Local law enforcement did bring up the fact that there needs to be safe access for the medical marijuana patients in our city.
Put them in residential areas.
I don't think that medical marijuana sites per se, just on their face, are going to be magnets for crime. It is the way that it's
Many of those locations dispense with a prescription for a fee, for a dollar value. What happens with those locations?
What everybody was saying, I get rich. I rent an apartment, I lease a car, and I have no savings account, and I'm $50,000 in debt. So I have been to see where I'm getting rich off of selling medical cannabis.
It's my life. It's my supplement, oh my God.
Now, my word is supplement to my God. We have to make a better world for our children, tomorrow children, tomorrow children, tomorrow. You all here got to make a better day, all of us.
There's a lot of prosecutorial forces that are trying to prevent cannabis dispensaries from existing in this city. I think you should look to other big cities like Oakland and San Francisco.
Realize that they've got to go to the next step, which is now to regulate the cultivating, to close the circle that we're talking about.
I can't believe that 2 years after the fact, we're still here having a conversation about whether or not collectors and cooperatives are legal and whether or not cannabis can be sold.
Justice delayed is justice denied. And I'm shocked that this is a tactic that's being used to keep me a medicine that's keeping me alive and keeping my life livable.
Not more than 2 extensions may be adopted, so you're breaking the law.
Many of the speakers today actually offered solutions.
It's reefer madness of us not getting to the grip of what we need to do, which is regulation and make it safe and affordable for these patients. All I ask is that you don't make these collectors more restrictive than you need to be.
We know that there are delivery services that provide these, and that's a better way to go.
We can use the intermediary exchange system. I buy points, the points get applied to the medicine that I get.
I offer up the model of taxation and regulation. It's been successful in several other cities that have been mentioned today. Oakland has the opportunity to inspect the books and have an open, honest relationship with the facilities that are attempting to do business in that city.
Today was really fascinating for me.
So my personal opinion after today's proceedings, what I would say we are moving forward with medical marijuana.
What's up? This is Hip Hop Recording Artist Ditch.
And I'm Bobo from the mighty Cypress Hill, and you're watching Cannabis Planet. You heard?
Hello, my name is Dr. Richard DeAndrea. I'm a medical doctor. Many of my patients come to me complaining of the side effects of pain medication, such as Oxycontin, Percocet, Vicodin. Did you know that medical marijuana is effective in the treatment of pain? You don't have to be terminally ill to use marijuana as medicine.
If you've been arrested for any alleged criminal conduct, it is important that you contact an experienced criminal defense attorney immediately. Contact our office today for a free consultation.
I certainly didn't think that I was the type of person to use marijuana as medicine until I did, and I realized that marijuana works.
Medican, a prescription for change. Located right off Catella Avenue, GGOC provides compassionate care and compassionate pricing. GGOC.
As you can see, there are a lot of different varieties here. And you might be able to tell the difference a little bit just by their leaves. Some of them have a thicker leaf, and some of them have a sort of a thinner leaf. And that's one indication. But the varieties also have different odors and different tastes when they're used. And also, they provide either different medical benefits. So that's why people prefer one variety over another. And you might prefer a different variety at a different time, because at one time you might want to be focused, and at another time you might want to be calm and relaxed. It's a lot like roses. There are so many thousands of roses, but all of these, there are 8 varieties in this room, and each one is distinctive. It's breeding. And all of these were bred, have been bred, most marijuana, what we consider modern marijuana, has been bred in the last 25 or 30 years. It has come a long ways, yes, because they yield more in less time, just like every other crop. People enjoy all different methods of growing, not only in techniques, but some like to grow a uniform garden, some like to try different varieties all the time. And it's very easy since there are all these clones. You can try one variety, then another variety, you could try them all together. Once you start growing, you want to try all different ways of growing it and try growing all different varieties.
Now with the black or white, nobody with no fuss or fight, let's get together and all unite and everything is gonna be alright when you tune in to Cannabis Planet TV, the #1 station supporting the legalization throughout the nation. Wow.
Hello, I'm Dr. Richard DeAndrea, a medical doctor. Did you know that you could use marijuana for insomnia or having trouble with sleep? You don't have to be terminally ill to use marijuana as medicine.
Good night, everyone.
The one on your cannabis planet over the hills and over the valley. Cannabis planet proposition 250 make it fast. Cannabis planet social rockers pop a me chip on the mic. Cannabis planet. Hear me now. I have trod through this turmoil before. I see poor becomes rich, rich become poor. Nothing fascinates me as I take a tour. Who no can't hold me down, so I shall endure. Jah is greater than the lilies of the field and more mighty in a battle. What is your battlefield? Jah is richer than all, so my wealth I conceal. Who no can't hold me down, 'cause love is my shield. And love is the only thing to fight against the wicked, and Jah is the only one to fight against the wicked, and love is the only universal language I know is love. Love makes me know. I said the wicked try a thing, but they don't make it. Doing injustice, say that time is so desolate. What about the goddess who don't have a paycheck? Who's gonna be there to wipe their sweat? Jah will be there in time of injustice, and Jah will be there in time of malpractice. So what you gotta do to get rid of this evil practice? Only love can take you from that darkness. And love is the only thing to fight against the wicked, and Jah is the only one to fight against the wicked, and love